Welcome everyone, this is LeiLani Cauthen, Learning Council News Media and Research. I am here again in Phoenix, in a different place this time, but I'm with my good friends Dr. Leslie Standerfer, who's the Assistant Superintendent of Academics from Buckeye Union High School District, and also Jason Stuewe, Assistant Superintendent of Student Achievement, Buckeye Union High School District. And you guys are sort of a dangerous team, right? You guys have been teamed up to do a lot of stuff, yeah? So you're also a growth district. You're still growing. You're not losing kids left, right, and center. People are still moving there. Okay. It's a very different dynamic than, of course, you've heard me talk about in other parts of the country, where you're losing kids, like left, right, and center. And we've got a whole thing going on in the country. But you are innovators. So you come listen to what we have to say about our... Okay. Let's wait. So you come listen to what we have to say about what's really going on in the dynamics of technology, culture, what the economy is doing, what people are spending on technology in K through 12, and it makes you think. So we've been doing this together for a few years. What are your thoughts now? I mean, you've seen a lot of change. Your superintendent left. You got a new superintendent who's been there now for 3 years. Things have been really different. What are your thoughts about where we're really at and what's changed? Jason, you want to go first?
I can.
Okay.
Our goal, our purpose in our district is to get kids ready for their life after high school. And those things have probably shifted a little bit for us in terms of what we're getting kids ready for now. Artificial intelligence is a big thing right now. And then the demand for skilled labor jobs. Electrician, plumbing, and those kind of things. We're kind of positioning our district, our setup on a 4x4 block schedule with students taking 8 classes a year as opposed to 6. And those 2 extra classes have really allowed us to do some of those things to get kids ready for life after high school and for what they're doing. So I guess those are some of the higher level things that we're looking at.
Yeah, and that's really awesome because the pendulum has really come back towards the trades, and I am seeing that. I probably didn't mention it to the two of you yet today, but even at the big trade shows, you see companies that are doing gardening kits, right? And all the seeds and everything is shipped out to you, and then the kids just like set up these big boxes with dirt and everything and plant stuff, and then welding courses, actually gardening courses, welding courses, stuff about, basically a lot more trades than just the early trends, which were sort of gaming and computer graphics, right? And some of that stuff. Yeah, so we're really going in another direction. I love it. I think it's very exciting. It's definitely another pressure on you. It's, you got to do all this, plus now do all this, right? It's like, and you can't even get the people for all the stuff you're supposed to be doing. So it's definitely a moment. All right, so Leslie, what are your thoughts? Same thing. Like, it's all different. What do you feel? What do you see?
I think it's an interesting time because I see these trends and you want to change, and I feel like change isn't happening as fast as I thought it would. Like 25 years ago, I remember as a young teacher telling my assistant soup that high schools were not going to look like what they look like 25 years from now. And they haven't changed as fast as I thought they would. I saw a little bit with the pandemic brought in a mix of things because people realized, yes, some learning can take place online. And I think we're seeing an acceleration of like the number of our students who take advantage of the opportunity to go to like some centralized CTE programs in addition to the 20 that we offer in our district, and take classes in person. But then if there's something they can't fit in their schedule, they can push a core class to an online, because we have our online learning that we let students blend and do concurrent between our online high school and our traditional. So I'm seeing more students taking advantage of those opportunities since the pandemic, since they had a chance, they were forced to do some online learning and learned that was a modality that could work. But I've also seen the backlash of people missing the in-person connections
Yeah.
and wanting those in-person experiences on campus is pushing back a little bit on the online. So it's an interesting dynamic as people are trying to figure out what really works for their student and what their student wants out of school.
That comes to one of the things that you brought up in your presentation, those 40 to 60%
Yeah.
of students it works for, right? And then the others not as much.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, that's typically what we saw during the pandemic, where there was a good portion of the kids, actually it's just about 50-50. 50% of them learn better because they like to be left alone. They don't actually need other people around them telling them what to do. They run themselves, right? This is not every kid. And there's certainly, and this is a really direct observation, there's a certain number of people in humankind that actually need
You should now be at your travel destination.
the social energy around them to get them focused, right? They may also need a human teacher to get them on task, but it's really mostly an energy thing. Like they get focused by others doing something alongside them and don't tend to do it by themselves, which I think is a very interesting observation, right? I don't know if I'm like that, and I don't know if you feel like you're that way, that you need other people around you to get you to do anything. But it's an interesting thing, right? So anyway, well, I love that you're talking, though, about the human side, because I want to go a little bit deeper into that with you both. The research is really showing us that we're leaving the age of technology, and I want to give you a caveat on that, and we're headed to what we call the age of humanity. Okay, sounds like a wild thing to say. It's something the Chinese are very focused on. They've actually publicly announced that their next millennium focus is on the extension of human life, right? That's their focus, right? Which is interesting on a global perspective. But I would say that we're in a moment where the building out of our technical expertise, the workflow of it all, how the humans are used in a school against the technology is job one. And job two is, how do we teach humans to be more human, or the human they were meant to be, in perspective against what's going on with technology, particularly AI? Because if we don't do that very, very soon, they may be arriving in a world where they feel useless, or actually are, because we didn't teach them what they needed to be. So what I'm saying is we're exploring now what that thing is. What does it mean to be a human against this other thing? What are your thoughts? Jason, you want to go first?
Wow.
Wow. Was that like to take just one part? Just take one part at a time.
Yeah, I mean, the technology and just putting the computer in front of kids, how do you have that human relationship then, I guess, is really a conundrum, I guess, because
Yes.
in this thing and you're doing everything, your lessons and so forth, and that you may have a face and interaction potential, I guess, through that.
Yes.
But to make that a connection, that is I think that's a challenge that we would have to deal with when we were going to, use that technology at a more comprehensive level, like you're talking about with the system that you have put out there.
Hybrid logistics, that
Yeah.
whole time and space change.
Yeah. Oh, that was one of my questions for you in the presentation, is that human relationship. How do you connect with kids in that environment at the level to, well, I guess what we're used to, but really trying to make it better,
Yes.
right? So how does that function in that world with a better relationship? Because we know with students, if there's a stronger relationship, there's better results, better learning can take place. So I'm not sure I have answers on that at all, but that's some of the apprehensions and questions.
Yeah, and it's good you're going down this road, because I think it's the road we're all going down, right? I think the world is going down this road where literally they can put nuclear weapons in the outer atmosphere, they can AI us, right? They can, I mean, we're like, there's movies made about this stuff, right? So we're moving into a time where it's like, okay, wait, there's value in us, right? There's value in humans. Like, what is it against the fact of this other stuff? That's all I'm saying. And I think you're looking at that too, and we're looking at it, like you were saying, post-pandemic, what it means to be a human. And I don't think we've had to address that for over 150 years, right? I don't think we've really had to address that as a society, as a culture, but now we've got a lot of mixing of cultures, and we have a lot of stuff going on. And now I'm talking about things like, let's change how space and time is done. And you're asking questions that are so basic, and so are you. They're so basic. And I think it changes everything to even ask the question. I'm going to stop talking there so you can weigh in.
I think we've said for a long time that technology should be the tool.
Yeah.
That we shouldn't do technology for the sake of technology. It should be a tool that makes things easier. But there's a lot of things that we spend human energy on that really we could do more efficiently if we would let the technological tools take over and do them.
Yes.
And I think there's a part of us that is afraid that we'll lose our purpose or our place.
Yes.
And what we're not doing is using the human side of us, the creativity, the ability to care and feel empathy. How much time in a classroom does a teacher spend saying things that a computer could say, but really what that kid needs is a caring teacher that can spend a few minutes focused on them and asking them what's going on or what's their individual structure. And if we could really make the hybrid learning that you're talking about work, you could have adults in your building who their whole day was spent monitoring
the human
side of kids, monitoring the social emotional side of kids, making sure that kids had what they needed, had their individual questions answered, and so more time on that and the pieces that every, a machine can give, the rote learning, let a machine give it. But that's a total shift from what we do. And that's a little bit of, I think there's some letting go of control for us as humans to trust that computer, that the kid's really getting it, because we're not looking in their eyes as they're getting it. I also think it takes away, and one of the things that we've always tried to balance is the art and science of teaching. I mean, how much of the creativity a teacher does in the room, how do we make sure they keep that in those in-person times?
Yeah.
So that teaching is still fulfilling and teachers don't just feel like I'm robots giving expert info, but I don't have a relationship with the kids or I don't, make a difference.
I love the way you just put that, because I lived in that future with you for a moment as you were saying it. And then I got to that last moment you were saying, which is how do you be as a teacher when you have shorter, maybe less moments of togetherness, but how are you being, right? Because the machine is distributing a lot of the knowledge. I think that's the challenge for the next century. I think that combination of exactly what teaching is and how human it is this new thing that we have to define. And we have to figure out exactly what that is. But I think to some degree we might already know. It's like we're being right now. It's like we're looking at each other and we're talking and we're like, and what do you think about that? And you're like, what do you think about that? Blah, 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 blah. We're like, this is what humanity is, right? And it's a very different dynamic than me and a machine, or you and a machine. Scrolling, poke, poke, poke on the screen. But I think we do need to put some brackets around it. I totally agree. I totally agree. What are your thoughts? Jason?
I agree. I think everything you just said right there.
Okay.
I think that's an apprehension that a lot of people have about that technology and what teaching and learning looks like in that more, it feels confined, I guess, with technology because it's just this thing.
Yeah.
But that humanity piece is we know that's very important, just in society right now, the level of people who are struggling with social emotional things. Why has that increased so greatly in the past, how many years? Pandemic related?
Yep.
Or is there a correlation to technology and the level of social media and so forth? Is that part of this technology conversation, and how do we harness that and help people deal with those aspects? Because I think they're all connected, inside of that.
Yeah, and I 100% agree. And as you were painting the picture, and you were with your hands, you were like, "This is a screen," and the kid's in the screen. Automatically, my mind goes to, and I'm sure you guys have thought this same thing, is that, of course, we have a problem with humanity if all of our humans are in a relationship with the screen and not with each other. And instantly, my mind said the word balance. Our job as institutions now is to balance what they're doing in every other part of life with its polar opposite when we actually have the togetherness moment. It needs to be not just little faces and little screens, but faces with each other, having a exploratory and experiential eyeball to eyeball moment. Would you agree? I don't know that we can do that like right now in the structure that we're in, but we have to focus on our humanity because the social emotional issue is off the charts, don't you think? I mean, culturally, yeah? I mean, you guys are a growth school and you're in kind of a wealthy area. Maybe not super duper wealthy. You're not Scottsdale, for crying out loud, but you're not, lower end of the spectrum. Do you still have social emotional issues? I want you to answer that first.
Yes, we still have it, and I'm going to say that sometimes, in my experience, you have the social emotional as much in the affluent areas as are non-affluent.
Wow.
I would say in title schools where families aren't as busy in the world and everything going on, that they sometimes spend more time as a family. And the kids maybe have less screen time and less of the world getting in the way than they do in some of your affluent families.
I
When
didn't
you,
think about it that way, but I think you're totally right. Yeah.
so I mean, and there's good families in both, and there's families who kids are going home to empty homes and feeling like all they have is the screen in both. But yeah, I definitely don't see it as a lower socioeconomic issue. I think it's as
everybody.
high.
It's everybody all at once. Well, I know one of the other things that was brought up today, and I forget who brought that up, but I think it was you, young lady, that there could be a problem with also the adults in schools who are screen addicted. Because, the boomers all left and they're all retiring, and there's younger people anyway. And I have had, and NetSweeper would confirm with this, I have had districts tell me that once they actually allowed social media to be used on campus, the incidence of who was using it was not really the kids, it was all the teachers. Because they could see it spike, which said to my mind, well, why would they be on Facebook as teachers? Well, they're not really teaching. The kids are doing their asynchronous. So anyway, so that brings in the whole spectrum of asynchronous versus synchronous learning, and the role of the human teacher and what the human teacher really should be doing versus these other things. And so I think we have an adult issue too, and it's not just more PD on training how to be, trained on this technology or the science of math or whatever. It's an adulting issue.
You also have the issue of, and I think adults do it as much as kids, as using social media as my friend. And at the end of the day, when I've had a tough day, am I venting to a trusted, companion at home or something, or am I venting on social media to the public? And I've had to deal with that as a principal, of things that, you vented about your day on social media, but you just put that out to the parents of all of your students. And was that professional and ethical? And all of those things.
Yeah, how would that make the students feel? Yeah, are you serious? Yeah, those are their issues. So in other words, we've got a depth of conversation to have right now that I think is so exciting but terrifying at the same time. And I swear to you, 10, 15 years ago, we weren't having this depth of conversation. Yeah. Like how deep this goes. This goes into, are you even an adult, right? Like running this, So, I mean, this is how serious it is, don't you think?
Isn't this time, is this described as a revolution, like the Industrial Revolution?
It is.
And
It's
the
an age of
evolution-
revolution.
And the evolution of that is us, I guess, trying to wrap our heads around our new environment with the level of technology that we have. And now the newest thing is artificial intelligence, right?
Yeah, coming at us like a steamroller.
Yeah. And then social media on top of that. And I don't think studies have been done, maybe they have, on what's the impact of all this on humanity. And now how do we prepare for or react to in a way that we can all work together through this revolution.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and I would say the studies are out there.
Okay.
And we're running behind because the most studies that have been done are in foreign countries, mostly in China, some in India, right? But the Chinese, even 10, 15 years ago, had figured out that they had kids addicted to gaming to such a detriment to their life and their academics, which is serious over there, that they would take them away from families and put them in boot camps to overcome their addiction to gaming, right? Like, this is like, are we thinking about that stuff at all? No. Mm-hmm. No. So, I mean, we have a long ways to go, but definitely the mood is shifting to the use of humans and being human, right? What are you as a human? I mean, what drives you? What discipline do you need? And I think one of the things that excites me the most is schools getting involved in how you protect your mind. Because when you're exposed to the open internet, you can get anywhere, anything, right, from your browser, then your role is no longer just seeking things and being free and blah, blah, blah. You're going to have a role of protecting your own mind, right? I mean, I'm not talking overt censorship of everything. I'm just talking about overdosing on something, like mentally, and then getting sucked into a rabbit hole and never getting your job done, so then you starve, right? Because we all know that we're capable of doing this. We binge watch shows, don't we? Right? And we know there's something wrong with that, right? We know that being a couch potato is not good for our health. So there's just things, right? And there's a whole potentiality here of craft and care for humans.
Well, and there was a time where we talked a lot about having an open mind and that we were becoming more of a global world and we needed to open up our thinking. Algorithms on the internet are now narrowing our thinking.
Yes, they're censoring us from stuff.
And the stuff that you choose to read, they feed you more of that same line of thought and stuff. And if we don't train our students how to recognize that and broaden their perspective, they are going to get a very narrowed channel of thought that's actually going to potentially stump thinking and stump that globalization and that, openness to cultures and openness to ideas.
I completely agree with that. But see, that's one of the protections of the mind I'm talking about. That if you find yourself in this place, then pull up out of that little grave that you just dug yourself in and look, right? And broaden. Because otherwise, you might think the world is all cruel, and it isn't. There are there's great and goodness, right, out there. But you've been somehow dragged down this rabbit hole and get out of that. That's one of the protections we need, right? Is the ability to look at what else, right? But yes, the internet recommendations engines, it says you were just looking for a new green blouse. Here's 57 million green blouses, right? And you're just going to see green blouses for the next month, right? Every time you're on the internet. But then when you shop for something else, it starts pinging you with this. And if you keep shopping for 16 other different things, the internet doesn't even know what to do anymore. It's just like, but we don't like, which is, right? Because it's going to give you everything, right? So anyway, I totally understand where you're coming from. But see, we just discovered maybe a new maxim, as you said that, of a thing that we need to teach. How many more are there? How many? Tons, right?
Probably.
So we've moved into the age of humanity, and I would challenge you two as leaders to think about where this all really goes. Because I don't think we have time to not do some of it now for these kids. I mean, I would hate to think that a child in one of my schools, if I was running a school, graduated into the big, bright world and didn't understand what you just said, didn't know how to get themselves out of the rabbit hole, and was getting pelted with blah, blah, blah every time they were on the internet, to the point where they committed suicide, right? Because that's the world that they dug themselves into, because they don't understand how to defend their own mind, right? So I just think this is a very interesting thing, and it's right in here, right now, right? And NetSweeper, you'd probably say something to me about that, because you guys have solutions for that as filtering and everything else, right?
Yeah, student safety, mental health, wellness. Challenges is knowing which student needs the help, and often a lot of schools rely on anonymous tip lines that just don't do enough, right?
Yeah.
And for us, we're looking for those breadcrumbs of internet surfing that lead up to those incidents, but to prevent, and react to it before something bad happens.
Yeah.
So that's what we do, and it makes my job a lot more interesting and exciting when we're saving lives and helping schools do that, and providing that safe, secure environment for parents to feel comfortable having their students attend those schools.
Yeah, and it's wonderful. And I think it's essential, right? We have to have that now. Okay, well, this has been a wonderful conversation, but I want to make sure you guys have, a question. Ask your question if you have a question. What do you want to say? Okay, we wore you out. And I can see that you've been thinking about what we've been talking about, though. And I hope that you got a lot out of today, and that you go forth and help spread this level of thinking around you, because I think it's imperative, that we do. And thank you guys for being with us. Thank you, too. Let's give them a round of applause. Dr. Leslie Standerfer and Mr. Jason Stuewe, thank you guys both so much for being with us.